Today's topic is water. I think people are fairly familiar with the functions of water in the body: chemical reactions, regulating body temperature, protection, lubrication, acts as a solvent. We have to maintain our blood volume. We can't become hypovolemic, and acid-base balance. Signs and symptoms of dehydration. So you don't have enough water. Your urine should be the color of lemonade. I was going to say country time lemonade, but it should be the color of lemonade. It becomes more concentrated when you become dehydrated. That's really the best single indicator of dehydration. You usually have increased thirst, but by the time you have that increased thirst, you're pretty severely dehydrated. Dry mouth, chapped lips, no more tear production, you no longer sweat, muscle cramps, nausea and vomiting, heart palpitations, you usually become lightheaded. With severe dehydration, confusion, weakness, seizure, coma, and organ failure. A few stories, as I like to tell you. So the ongoing joke is that at 2.8 miles, when I go running, I vomit. I become dehydrated very easily. It must run in my family, and I'll tell you that other story. So I went running on an 80-degree day about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and I wasn't adequately hydrated with a friend of mine. And at 2.8 miles, I vomited on someone on the UMaine campus's bike tire as he went by. So I've never lived that one down. And I went running with my husband, and sure enough, at 2.8 miles, I start vomiting. And the reason I'm vomiting is I'm dehydrated. So I'm one of those people that needs a Camel pack. I know it's only 3 miles, but I do become very quickly dehydrated. My brother, who I think I've mentioned, played football. He was a linebacker. Way back, high school days, doing 2-a-days in 90-plus degree weather in August, almost died. There was a mentality, which is absolutely asinine, that if they were real men, they shouldn't be hydrated or drink water. So he actually was so dehydrated, he had heat stroke, and he started to seize. And the ER physician had said 10 more minutes and your son would be dead. He would have gone into cardiac arrest. So it's nothing to joke about. Some of these college athletes that die on the field become dehydrated, or they have cardiac abnormalities that lead to that. So it's very important to make sure that our student athletes are hydrated, and that you yourself hydrate, and you certainly know your limits, or take precautions in terms of hydration, or make accommodations for your physical activity so that you can be adequately hydrated. How's that for me lecturing you on hydration? The kidneys play a major role in hydration. They really regulate the water content and ion concentration in the body. They filter excess ions from the blood. They remove excess sodium ions. And then, of course, water follows sodium. I think that goes back to like Bio 100. Apologies, that went very quickly. The kidneys also serve to remove drugs and metabolic wastes. The waste products of protein metabolism are urea and uric acid, and that has an impact on hydration. You have to have enough water. You have to be adequately hydrated to flush those waste products from protein metabolism out of the body in the form of urine from the kidneys. Most water is in fact lost through the urine. Again, the color will indicate your hydration status. A small amount in the feces. You do lose some from the respiratory tract and skin. We have insensible loss. The major sources of water, of course, are beverages. The major source of water is, in fact, water. And foods. Only about 25% from foods. And we get just a tiny, teeny bit from metabolism. So some of the biochemical reactions that occur at a cellular level. It's a balancing act. So we know body water is lost through urine, perspiration. When we exhale, we're actually losing some moisture. We're losing some water. Feces and insensible perspiration. And for those of you who aren't familiar with it, or just as a reminder, I should say, body water that passes through the skin and is not from the sweat glands. So you don't really notice that you're losing this. It's insensible. Theoretically, to maintain your hydration status, the fluid that you intake should equal the fluid that you lose. That's the goal. So where are we getting water? Well, our beverages and foods. Our fruits and vegetables account for about 60 to 95%. Excuse me, they're typically made of 60 to 95% water. And again, we produce water as a result of a metabolic byproduct. I do want to mention diuretics. They're substances that increase urine output. It's usually for purposes of maintaining appropriate blood pressure, or in individuals that have congestive heart failure, getting rid of excessive fluid and decreasing their cardiac load. Two common diuretics that naturally occur in foods are caffeine and alcohol. Now, these both inhibit ADH, which is antidiuretic hormone. So ADH would normally prevent the loss of fluid from the body, but these two diuretics, caffeine and alcohol, inhibit this hormone. So caffeine and alcohol inhibit ADH, which is why when you drink alcohol excessively or caffeine, you tend to lose quite a bit of fluid. And I have this quote, hangovers may be an effect of dehydration on the brain. The more you drink, the more fluid you lose, and that dehydration or that hangover effect may actually be dehydration. Can too much water be toxic? Yes, absolutely. There was a contest on the radio. It wasn't in the area where I live, but they were encouraging people to drink large quantities of water, and I don't recall the amount of water, but one individual actually drank so much water that they died from hyponatremia. They actually diluted their blood volume to such a degree that they caused death. We see this sometimes in psych patients. It's called hyponatremia and hypernatremia are something that we see fairly often in the clinical setting, and both are results of either diluted plasma due to excessive consumption of water or losses of water. So if you're hyponatremic, you have an excessive amount of water, and sometimes that happens with something called SIADH, which is syndrome of inappropriate antidiuretic hormone. You have excess antidiuretic hormone, and it prevents you from, with excessive antidiuretic hormone, you end up retaining fluid essentially, whereas antidiuretic hormone is inhibited with things such as caffeine and alcohol. In hypernatremia, you're actually losing water without losing solutes. Now, opposite of that are isotonic imbalances, which occur as a result of both gains or losses in fluid along with solutes, so along with electrolytes. And that concludes the water lecture.